I don't know what Matthew said as I used to skive off of Sunday school, but I do remember that bit that says, "Thou shalt not allow a witch to live." An excerpt from Far or Foe, the Cracklock Saga by C.A. Deegan.
Welcome to P English Literature, a YouTube channel that conveys Amazon, Goodreads, blog, and video book reviews coupled with interviews with authors. It's a perfect channel for book lovers, authors, and writers generally. P English Literature, the exact channel for you and me.
Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and to the review of Far or Foe by C.A. Deegan. This is another fantasy book that I find very amazing. It is absolutely enthralling and I so much love it that I don't even know how to start my review. The book delves into the matter of mythology, it delves into fairies, it delves into different topics. That's one of the reasons we actually consider it a perfect literary work. It's a story that pulls me in, and it's a story that I was so fascinated when I read through it. I love the author's storytelling techniques. I love the choice of words. I love the vocabulary. I love everything about it. And when I read it, I was able to paint image of what is happening in the book in my head. I don't know if you understand such kind of trait, but being able to paint an image in your head as you read a story is one of those amazing traits, an amazing feature and characteristic that I so much love about books. You know, I love reading books that you'll be able to pull you in. I love reading books where you become engrossed in the story, in the character, in the characterization and the plot twist. And I need to say that the translation of the novel is very amazing. Honestly, when I actually read through the book, I left a post. I actually made a post on my Facebook page and I was like, this book deserves an award. Honestly, the writing style is one of those things that enthralls me most in the book. The storytelling techniques is one of those things that I found quite dynamic in it, and I am so fascinated with Craig Deegan's storytelling techniques. As in, its choice of word is something that I'm not so much familiar with, and while I read through the book, it had me craving for more that I cannot even wait to read the second book series. Okay, my review of this book is actually gonna be a spoiler free. I won't be talking too much about it. I just want to give you a short video book review for you to have an idea of what Craig Deegan has to tell in its wonderful, amazing, fantasy book. Before I move into my short video book recommendation, I'd love to read to you the synopsis of the book. No one would want to kill a fairy, surely. Jack Crackley wouldn't. He has no time for make-believe, no decent teenager does. There are plenty of other things to worry about. His mom, job, school, the local bullies, not to mention some weird diseases that is affecting kids the world over. However, things are never as they seem. Little eyes watch out for him while bigger ones seek him for their own end. Jack will have to step up if both the far and our children are to stand a chance, and that's a tall order when you have no idea who you really are. And that's one thing I love to say about the book. Jack Crackley, which is actually the protagonist, is someone who has no idea of the sort of trait that he possesses. He has no idea what kind of person he is. He has no idea that he has some sort of innate, inborn powers and abilities. And this sort of trait was actually, bring out by someone, a old man, which I would love to talk about later on. But one of the things I would love to say about the book is that it has a bit of history. It has a bit of some things about fairies, because while I actually read the book, it had me making some sort of research on fairies, and there's some things that the author mentioned based on the sort of conversation that exists between the characters that I was like, okay, I jot some things down, and I was looking forward to asking the author to ask Craig Deegan so he can shed more light on these things that seems a little bit obscure to me in the book. Honestly, I so much love this book. It's one of those books that I have gained writing style and techniques even as a writer, and I'm very sure to make reference to it in future time. So before I continue in my review, I'd love to read to you about the author. Craig Deegan lived in the East Midlands, right in the center of the United Kingdom. And when he's not writing or working, he's with his family and walking the dog in the local woodland, seeking those ever exclusive fae, or sitting print in hand with a good friend he grew up with. Some of them are hidden in the book themselves. Quite a few characters are based on the people he know and love. Publishing wise, he is a male fledgling writer, having had a few short stories published to date, but always trying for more. So you can check more about him in the description part of this video, because I actually left a link to the website of his book in the description part. And I need to say that the fact that he has written in the about the author section that some of the characters are some people that he knows, it's somewhat funny to me. I think I need to make more reference to that afterward. So this book actually detailed the life of Jack Crackley, who to my own perception had no idea of the sort of traits, of the sort of facial characteristics that he possessed. He had no idea that he was born with some sort of innate ability, with some sort of inborn features, which was actually discovered by Mr. Binks. Mr. Binks had firstly invited Jack into his house with the hope that it's gonna help him lift a table. So, Jack is actually someone who does go to school. He wasn't really born into a very wealthy family, and sometimes he had to, from school, do some menial job, deliver the newspaper, and do some other things to help his mother, who is working almost at every time to pay the bills and keep everything intact. So before I move into the story of Mr. Binks and Jack, there is an amazing character that I so much love in this novel. His name is Jimmy. Jimmy is someone who is very loquacious, is a talkative, and one of the problems that he had is that he cannot keep his mouth shut. And I need to say that I love the author's description of Jimmy's feature. I love his characterization, most especially the part whereby he was engaging in a sort of conversation with the Lafayette twins. And when the Lafayette twins caught him, they were like, "Oh, we're gonna deal with you today because you had problem with your mouth. You don't know how to keep your mouth shut." So Jimmy is actually someone that I find so lovely due to its problem, or due to the trouble that he had with the Lafayette twins, which is actually Mason and Tyler. They actually captured him and they were going to give him the beating of his life. It was during the point of beating Jimmy that Jack intervened, and Jack ordered them that you guys should stop beating him. So from there, they retreated Jack. They tried to beat him also, but they eventually succeed. And from there, Jimmy had developed sudden friendship with Jack. Okay, now turning into the transition of what happened between Mr. Bink and Jack. Mr. Bink had invited Jack for a walk in his house. So after the table had been lifted, he tried to offer Jack a payment. And Jack was like, "Oh, sorry, Mr. Bink, just leave it alone. I don't need the money. I'm just trying to help you." But Mr. Bink was insistent. He was like, "You have to take the money. It's a work. You worked for it, and you really have to take the money." To cut the long story short, Jack eventually took the money. But what happened eventually was somewhat unimaginable. It was quite very drastically interesting. Old Bink had drug Jack because he actually said, "Okay, Jack, before you go, please come in and have some drink." So Old Bink had drug Jack, and the aftermath of his drug, or the effect of the drink, had Jack feeling unconscious and hallucinating. It was at this point that Jack began to realize that Old Bink's face had begun to change, like Mr. Bink's face had begun to change. It was kind initially. Why has it suddenly developed into a beast? So it quickly dawned on Jack that he is in hot trouble and that Mr. Bink is not actually someone that he proposed to be initially. So it was on this point that Jack was trying to escape from the end of Mr. Bink. Mr. Bink tried possible bets, and that was the point where he revealed himself to Jack as being a devil. So Jack tried his possible best, started fighting, and he was eventually able to escape, even though Mr. Bink had some fae to look over him. And I'd love to point out that, when I'm talking about fae or talking about fairy, it's something that I actually find quite exceptional in this book. And I'd love you to make some research while watching this video, and also want to check out the sort of amazing information that Craig Deegan has conveyed in this book about fairies, because I've actually heard about it, but this is the second time whereby I'm having a sort of an extensive interpretation of what fairy faes are actually all about. So it was at the point of Jack escaping from the wicked beings that he actually had an accident. He was riding on a bicycle and a car hit him, and from there the next thing he realizes that he was in the hospital. While Jack got to the hospital, they actually spent some days. He never knew that he had been sleeping for 4 days now, as told by the doctor, and her mother, Sammy, came in to help her. So after the long treatment, I think a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, Jack eventually came back to normal, but he lost his sight. In the process of losing his sight, he would sometimes have a sort of feeling that people are communicating with him. He actually could have a sort of a light sensation coming in his eyes whenever he closed it, but he couldn't see very well. And oftentimes he would imagine or he would sense the presence of some strange beings in the room talking together, and those strange beings actually fail. And they were like, how was he able to hear us? So all of this sort of supernatural, extensive, mysterious feature that actually define the face in this book is something that I actually find very amazing and captivating. So the story kept unfolding, and it was unfolding in a dynamic manner. Eventually, Jack was discharged from the hospital, though he still had problem with his eyes. So to keep a check of him, the doctor actually, proposed that he should probably stay at home for 2 or 3 weeks in order to study the eye, coming back to normal. But her mother, Sammy, was terrified because she felt that she cannot leave her job again and stay with her son, because she has actually spent quite a lot of time in the hospital taking care of him. So she eventually came up with the idea that she is gonna call Auntie AC in one of the towns to help her with Jack while she's away at work. The arrival of Auntie AC is quite enthralling, as in it added more alluring features and characterization and awesome description to this book. AC arrived, and Jack was quite excited that, she asked someone else in the house. So in the point of AC arriving in the house, AC was able to introduce Jack to some sort of mysterious thing, to some sort of feature that actually defined his personality. And they were able to travel through a sort of a graph by the waterside to other realm of the fairies, and from there Jack was introduced to a lot of things. He was introduced to know more about his family history. He was introduced to know more about his father and the sort of power that he's embedded with. While all of this is going on, poor Sammy, which is actually Jack's mother, had no idea of what is actually going on, because she would go to work in the morning, and before she comes back in the evening, the people, Auntie AC and Jack, had already gone to the fairy world, through the world, because it's something supernatural. They just draw a graph and they perform some magic and they disappear into the fairy world. So all of this keep unfolding. It was keep unfolding. Jack began to get grounded into the history of his family, and all of this keep moving to the point whereby they got to realize that someone was desperately seeking for Jack. And that person's name is Anastasia. And I need to say that I hate Anastasia in this book. I just hate her characterization. And that's something I really love about this book. It's so amazing, it's so enthralling, captivating, at the point whereby you find yourself loving some characters and you find yourself desperately hating other characters. And I need to say that Anastasia is actually a cruel demon. So Anastasia, I think, had a sort of connection with Dr. Cracklock. So from here, they organized something together. We're going to get Jack. So they started checking around to know if they're going to find Jack. Eventually, they resort to going into Jack's school. So once they got to Jack's school, they saw the silly Laffy twins hanging around. And she thought that, okay, I think these twins will be helpful. So after she called them, she told them that she's looking for someone, Cracklock. So the Laffy twins folks said that they had no idea of who is called Cracklock. But Tilly, one of them suggested that I think Crackly and Cracklock seemed a little bit. They just tell him that we know Jack. So they told her that, we know one Jack, Crackly. And Anastasia was like, I think we should go with Jack Crackly. And from there, she gave them some sort of money that, okay, I think if you're able to find him, I just need to locate his house. Then take this and come back for your next payment. These twins were actually excited. They are the kind of person that love all this kind of work, taking something from people, jacking things and demanding money in payment. And this is a sort of a good contract for them. So they actually went ahead because they knew that Jimmy would still find his way to Jack's house after school had closed. So once the school closed, they stylishly followed Jimmy while he was on his way to visit Jack because he knew that Jack had an accident. So Jimmy set on his way to Jack's house, and these Lafayette twins stylishly, stealthily followed him behind until they were able to locate his house. And I need to say this, that at a point, Jack's sight was restored through the help of a glamour, what Auntie AC actually did with the other Fae. So once Jimmy got to Jack's house, Jack was actually not around because it was in the afternoon, and himself and AC and other people had traveled to the realm of the Fae. Though they don't go to the normal door, they go to the wall, they draw a graph and they put things together and they perform the stuff and they disappear. But I need to say that there's another Fae in the house, which is Dorcas, the very young Dorcas. So once Jimmy got to Jack's house, he started knocking when he realized that the Lafayette twins are behind him, because the Lafayette twins are actually people that love causing trouble. They've caused trouble with him countless times. Sometimes they seize his phone, demand for payment, and all of those things. So once they get to the door, he started knocking. Jack, please come up, help me. The Lafayette twins are after me. And the Lafayette said, okay, I think we've gotten what we want. You've already told us what we want. This is Jack's house, right? Alright, that's fine. But before we leave, we need to teach you some lessons. So they started beating poor Jimmy without any cause, without any reason. It was at this point that Jimmy was screaming, still shouting, Jack, come out, help me, they're after me. So Dorcas was actually the only one at home, the Fae Dorcas. And she was like, who is that person shouting? So when she skipped to the door, she could see that it is Jimmy. She had actually met Jimmy the day before because he actually came around visiting Jack. She was like, oh, these people actually tormented him, but she wasn't permitted to go out to help him because she knows that she's invincible, and it is not good, based on the fairy law, for fairies to come up and attack the lifers, I think. So once all of this is going on, kind Dorcas cannot control herself watching Jimmy be beaten down by the obstinate laughers. So she eventually came out, opened the door. When she opened the door, they couldn't actually see her because she's supernatural, she's invincible, she's a Fae. So she came out and started beating those Lafayette twins. She hit Tally, hit Mason, and they could feel something beating them, but they couldn't see anything beating them. They could feel someone punching them, giving them all manners of beating, but they couldn't see the person attacking them. This was absolutely weird to them, and they were like, Jimmy, what are you doing to her? Even Jimmy himself was watching, stunned, in ill shock, like, what is happening? What is beating you? I cannot see anything over here. And this part is actually very nice. It is action driven, and I so much love the way Craig Deegan was able to describe every characterization, plot twist. It truly makes for an interesting read. So once the beating was too much, the Lafayette twins had to escape for their life, and they went back reporting to Anastasia that, okay, we got to Jack's house, this is the address, but that house has some sort of spiritual things going on. Someone beat us, but we cannot see the person. So from this point, Anastasia was able to know that something is not right. She also knows more about Fae. She has a lot of glamour, she has a lot of magic to herself. And at this point, when she got the address, she was able to say, okay, yeah, I need to trace Jack. So the story kept unfolding, and it was unfolding in a dynamic manner. At a point, Elsie discovered that one of them was having problem, or was actually captivated in the point, and she felt that she should leave and help her. So from this point, Sammy was the only one at home. So it was at this point that Anastasia came into the house and knocked the door. Okay, she came out and opened the door and said, okay, what are you looking for? Anastasia introduced herself and said, okay, I'm one of the family of your husband, and I'm here to see your son, Jack. Sammy was actually somewhat stunned. She was surprised. I said, what kind of August visit is this? Why have you intruded my house? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a son called Jack. I don't even know, probably you've entered the wrong house. But Anastasia was quite very obstinate, and she started tormenting poor Sammy to the point whereby she said she could smell a Fae in the house, and she ordered her silly son Benedict to go upstairs and fish out the Fae. So it was at this point that they brought Dorcas out. Dorcas is not invincible to Anastasia and Benedict because they actually know more about this fae. And that's one thing I love about this book. I love the transition. Honestly, I cannot just describe it enough. I think it's something that you should go and read, and I so much recommend the book to lovers of literature at large. Even if you're so much in love with a particular genre, I'm very sure that you're going to find absolute pleasure and joy reading through Craig Deegan's Fire and Foe. So all of this kept unfolding, and Anastasia began to torment Dorcas. She began to torment even Sammy, and at this point, Essie eventually arrived home. She noticed that something is not right when she was coming from a place in a taxi, and she demanded the driver parking her somewhere else so she could take a look at what is actually happening. Once she get there, it was at the point whereby Benedict was about to quench Dorcas that she speaks out. And I love the way, her traits come into this part. I love the introduction of this particular aspect. So Acey's quick arrival in Sammy's house was so amazing. I love the fact whereby Acey and Anastasia begin to exchange glamour, they begin to exchange powers, and Acey is actually someone who is not scared of Anastasia. They both have magic, they are both very good and knowledgeable about glamour, and I so much love the description of this part. It is one of my best part of the novel because it's full of action, it's full of effect, it's full of amazing narration, and I was so enthralled. It was at this point I was like, yes, killer, useless idiot, because I was so engrossed in the novel. I was pulled in, and the book actually read like a movie. I think it will be very, very good for movie production and all of that. And I so much find absolute pleasure when I read through Craig Deegan's Fire and Foe, and I cannot wait to read the second book and third book series. Once I got that, I'm gonna review it also on this channel for you to have an idea and to have an experience of what Craig Deegan has had to tell in this fantastic book of his. I don't want to spoil the story. I don't want to talk about everything in entirety. I just want to give a short video book recommendation for you to have an idea of what the Cracklock Saga Fire and Foe is actually all about. If you'd like to know more about this book, I left a link in the description part of this video for you to get a copy directly on Amazon. Honestly, I so much love it. It is one of those books that I have learned writing style and techniques in. And like I said earlier on, I love the author's choice of word. His storytelling techniques is so brilliant, and I am so fascinated with this book. Honestly, I am so fascinated with Craig Deegan's book. It has a lot of theme encapsulated in it. It has a lot of dynamic features. The characterization are quite enthralling in a way that the characters have you thinking for more. There is much to this book than I have described. I just don't want to talk about everything in entirety, but I'd love to say that this is one of those fantastic books that I've ever read. So I'm gonna keep this spoiler free, and I would love to continue in this review because I so much love it. If you watch this video to this point and you have to click on the subscribe button, I want to urge you to please click on the subscribe button over there. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you can get notified anytime I release new videos. And thank you so much for watching my video book review of the Cracklock Saga Fire and Foe by Craig Deegan. It is something that is very amazing. I can't describe it enough. It is enthralling, it is captivating, it is very, very powerful, and it reads like a movie. I recommend this book to lovers of fantasy, fairy tales, mythology, anything, and literature in general. My love for this book had me giving it a 5/5-star review, and I absolutely recommend it. Thank you so much for watching my video book review. See you in my next video.